Welcome back to the Prepare Like a Pro podcast. This week on the show we have David Mirra. Dave is a retired AFL player and two-time premiership VFL player. Before Hawthorn Football Club, he had a successful playing career at the Boxhill Hawks, being part of 2 premierships and acting captain for one of them. He holds the record for the most games as captain for Boxhill. And as he was drafted to Hawthorn, he was a mature age, debuted in his first year and played a total of 11 games over his 2 years. Before we start episode 54, the Prepare Like a Pro podcast mission is to empower aspiring athletes and staff with practical knowledge from some of the industry's most inspiring individuals and to strengthen the AFL community. If you like the show, please show your support by following us on Facebook, Instagram, and subscribe to our podcast. We're on iTunes, Spotify, and YouTube.
Go, boom.
We're on. We got it. You'd think we'd be all over this by this stage of the year, mate. Still taking us a while to get used to it all.
Yeah, all the technology, the face-to-face chats. It's amazing how you get used to it. Relatively normal now, isn't it?
Yeah, it is, mate. Yeah, I haven't done the old Facebook one yet, though, so that's still quite new. So here we are.
Awesome. Here we are. Well, we'll dive in, mate. Take us back to the beginning. At what age did you discover you had a passion for AFL football?
Yeah, footy was something that I just loved from a early age. Ever since I can remember, I had a footy in my hand. Look at old photos and all that sort of stuff. I've got a footy. I loved Auskick, loved playing in the backyard, loved junior footy. Some of my fondest memories, Jack, are Saturday afternoons at the MCG when I was a young fella, and Mickey, my old man, he used to take myself and my brother, and we'd sit up in the nosebleeds and watch our idols run around on the MCG, and then I'd try and emulate them. I'd get home and I'd be in the backyard and I'd pretend that I was James Hird or Matty Lloyd and Blake Carousella and all these guys that I admired, and always thought to myself how cool it would be if one day, I could run on the MCG and have the opportunity to play footy. I never thought of it as a career, and I really didn't think that I could ever get there, to be honest, until I turned 18 and started playing some TAC Cup footy, and I saw some people that I'd played with and against get drafted. Did I think that I was a chance of getting there? But the passion was ignited early on, and I still love the game, still playing, and
Awesome. So as a junior, it was very much a passion and a love, but taking it seriously as a career path didn't really kick in till later on in your career.
Yeah, I guess I wasn't that good, to be honest, throughout my junior career. Like I'd started okay as an under 12, and I remember being cut. This is a funny story. I got cut at regional trials for the Vic schoolboy squad under 12s, the very first stage, and I was against guys that hadn't even played footy, to be honest, and I got cut that first week, and I'm not sure what happened, but somehow I got allowed back in, and the next week ended up getting past the next stage and the next stage and the next stage to get towards the squad. But I remember we had the squad trials at Scotch College, and I got cut, but before the final squad of, I think it was about 26 or something like that, got picked. But then after that, I never made interleague. Wasn't the best player in the team or anything like that. And it wasn't until sort of 16, 17 where I started to really find some confidence in myself and my footy, and started to develop from there, and only made TAC Cup in my top age year as an 18-year-old. It was a bit of a late developer, if you like, but never really thought that I could play AFL footy. It wasn't until there were guys that I'd played against, like Sam Blease, who got picked up by Melbourne, did I think that I was a chance of potentially getting there.
Yeah, okay, so you hit your draft year. How'd you find that first year as an 18-year-old NAB league? Because I'm sure there'd be some players or some guys going into their draft year and they're in the same situation where they didn't play early under 16s, 17s into their 18th, but they're going in first time. Is it quite confronting not knowing some of the boys and that sort of thing?
Yeah, it was a little bit, but I did know a few of them because I'd already sort of played against them in our local competition. But, I absolutely loved my time at Eastern Rangers in my top age year. Like, there were some absolutely fantastic guys who I'm still mates with to this day. One of them actually just messaged me now, and Jaden Cass, who was the captain of that team. We had an awesome year, and we are still mates, a lot of us from that group. It was actually a really, really tight-knit group, and one that, by rights, we probably should have won the flag that year, but got pipped in the prelim by Calder, who ended up winning the flag. But yeah, look, it was a step up, in terms of preparation, in terms of training loads, the professionalism of it. It was a massive step up. I'd gone from playing local footy at Scoresby under 18s and St Simons to then going and playing at Eastern Rangers, and then after one match I was in the Vic Metro squad. So it was a pretty quick shift and something that I had to get used to.
And when did you start recognising, like, that confidence started to build that, this is something that I could take seriously and be a career?
Yeah, it was probably after the first match. So we played Gold Coast at Carrara, I think it was. So Gold Coast were entering the AFL competition, but the way that they were going to do it was tiered. So it was going to be TAC Cup, then it was going to be VFL, and then AFL. And we were the very first team to play the Gold Coast. And so we played over there. It was a Saturday night. I played on a wing. I was a skinny wingman, mate. You believe that? And had a good game. And from there, I guess it really gave me the confidence that I could play at TAC Cup level. Then I sat down with the talent manager and said, mate, you're going to be in the Vic Metro team. And I guess it was from there where I really started to realise that I could be a chance to be drafted at the end of the year.
Right, so you're a winger. I didn't realise. Outside mid you started.
Yeah, I started outside mid. Was probably only weighing maybe 78 to 80 kilos. I played inside mid as a junior, and then at Eastern, I guess I had a pretty good running capacity during the pre-season, something that faded away pretty quickly as I started eating more pasta, mate. But I played on the wing, which was good, and I mixed it with a little bit of halfback as well. Yeah.
And you were known, well, certainly I noticed it, and anyone that's been around Boxhill, I see Banners has joined on, he's watching. So any Boxhill people, you're definitely known for your work ethic and your leadership. Were those two trait things that you picked up from mentors, players? Were they sort of natural skill sets that you had growing up from family? Like, where did you sort of pick up those sort of skill sets?
Yeah, if I really want to pinpoint a place where I get that from, it's probably my family. That's ingrained in me from my grandparents, and they migrated to Australia. My non work day shift, night shift. They did everything that they could just to provide for their family. And my dad was the same. He'd work 6 days a week. So for me, it was always about working hard, and I guess Dad was the one to instill that in us as kids. Was if you do put in the work, that the rewards will come. And I got to see that firsthand with them. So it was something that was ingrained, but it was also something I had to work on as well. I'm not saying that I always had hard work. Things were difficult for me. As I said, I just spoke about my running capacity. Well, as a junior, my running capacity was pretty good, but then that dwindled away when I started playing some senior footy, and I had to work really hard to get that back. And it wasn't easy. So, it only really came when I started to develop in my body and understand what my capabilities were, that I could really get the best out of myself.
Yeah, okay. So that for junior footballers watching, and I know you're involved in that space as a player and having and mentoring guys like Vincent Aducci and that sort of thing. How important is it finding your confidence, and how do you work on that? Like getting
it's massive.
Up?
Yeah, having belief that you can be at the level is huge. And for me, it took a little bit of time. So in my first year at Boxhill, I played one game as a 23rd player. And I reckon I played maybe 30% game time, and we lost by about 80 points. And I spent the whole year in the development team. Now, that was good because I got to learn the systems, understand where I was at as a player and work on my deficiencies. But then when I got the opportunity in the senior team and I played a couple of games back to back, that's when I started really believing that I was good enough at the level. And that was just a matter of simply playing your role for the team. If you play your role for the team, then and you got yourself a 3 or 4 out of 5, then that's what I strive to do every week. And I didn't put too much pressure on myself that I needed to be the star or anything like that. I just wanted to make sure that, I ticked the boxes with what was required from me.
Yeah. Okay. So play your role, and that first game that you played, VFL level, was that sort of like an eye-opening experience, where you could take that experience into development league and better yourself?
Yeah, it was. I remember being really nervous and scared about it, to be honest. The first kick, I still remember my first kick. I was that nervous. It was like a little 15-metre pass on the run that I would have made easily any other time, but I was really scared about it. But then just getting those minutes and realising that, I probably put it in my mind as, this really high level of footy that was going to be really difficult. But, once I started to believe in myself, I sort of realised that I was capable at that level and comfortable as well.
And for the guys, like the mature age players that are on a VFL list, you know how hard it is to stay at that level and play consistently, especially with a line team. To even get picked can be a challenge, let alone performing at a high level to try and get drafted. How did you manage that while also, looking after your career, family, those sort of things, like the balance of performing at a high level, VFL footy, while pursuing a dream of getting drafted?
It's a really difficult one because your standards need to be at AFL standards, even though you're not playing AFL footy yourself, because you're competing with and against those guys every single week. So the challenge is how do you fit that in around your work, your family, and, having some time to be with your mates and having a social life. So there's certain sacrifices that you need to make if you want to, I guess, pursue your career and play at the highest level that you can. And that comes down to owning your career and taking some responsibility for it as well. So for me, it was, I'd have to do weight sessions, bike sessions, outside of the footy club, extra running, recovery, all the extra added stuff that you need to do to be up there with the AFL guys had to be done around work. So, it was after work, or if it was in the morning before work, you'd fit it in at lunchtime. Any gap that you had, you just had to try and make it work. But you also had to be realistic as well. You couldn't just go and do it, on a Wednesday after work, for example, if you needed to be with your partner, or you needed to be with your family, or you needed to have that social time. So you also needed to make sure that your mentals were looked after. So it really is a balancing act. But the ones who have got the time to put in the effort and make the time are the ones that excel at that level. And then it's also just, being around the footy club and being involved. And, I was fortunate enough to be at Boxhill. We had an awesome football club, some really, really good people, some great coaches. So that made it really enjoyable to be around. And, I just invested all my time into being, the best teammate that I could for that football club. And, whether that resulted in me getting drafted or having success, that was an external, I was intrinsically motivated by being around the boys and wanting to produce a premiership for the club.
And with your own personal development, how formal was it? Like, did you have a focus of your game that you were working on during a particular phase, or was it more just week by week? How was your game on the weekend? That was your review, and then that goes into your training that week. Like, take us into a little bit of how you prepare and get better over your career.
There's probably there's a few facets to it. I guess you have a fitness and preparation goal in mind, and then you also have a football one. And then you also have, for example, that now that I'm starting to realise it more, is you have, a mental health one. So for me, in terms of my physical preparation, it was all around my running capacity. I didn't have the strongest running. I wasn't at the front in my 2K time trials, or I wasn't the quickest or anything like that. But my focus is I wanted to be running with the midfielders. Even though I was a defender, I wanted to be running with them and being as fit as I could. So I'd do some extra work throughout the week. So extra cardio sessions. So that would be bike. I remember doing some boxing sessions with you, mate, during the week. If you remember them on a Wednesday. So that was something that I could do off legs to improve my fitness.
Yeah.
And then I'd have a football one. So, that would be position specific, and it would also be, related to my areas of deficiency. So things that I would work on during the week that were related to the upcoming game, or related to, my own personal game that I would work on throughout the week. And then, having something to switch off from football. So, catching up with mates for dinner, or, listening to podcasts, watching movies, studying. I was working at the time, and I studied a Bachelor of Exercise Sports Science and Sports Management. And so trying to balance it all out.
Yeah, awesome. That's great. So 3 different tiers. You got your physical side, your football, and then your mental side.
Yeah.
That's great for anyone, any young footballers or any age that you're playing footy. That'd be a great thing to adopt. With the mental side, how important is it having that identity outside of football?
For me, it provided a huge balance. I loved it. I was at my best, I reckon, when I was working full-time and playing footy. Not saying that works for everyone, but I was able to just release from footy. Like we'd play on a Saturday or Sunday, and then Monday you wouldn't even think about it until a Tuesday review. Because you get into work Monday morning and you have so many tasks to get through. You just wouldn't think about it. But then football would have then become the release to work. So then I get to footy training on a Tuesday night, and, I could drop everything that was going on at work. So for me, it was awesome to have something else. I just think it's such a important piece, particularly for any footballer when you're playing at elite level, to have something else to turn to. The game doesn't go out forever. I at the elite level only played 2 years, 11 games. So it was important for me to have something else to focus on. So for me, studying, working full time, was really important. But for like that could be anything. It doesn't have to be work, but it could be uni. So doing something that you're passionate in. As you mentioned, I'm good mates with Vince, and Vince has got his push-pull brand that started out as a bit of fun, but now he's starting to take it a little bit more seriously. So, having something like that is really important. Yeah,
absolutely. And that's something that just because it was your study and then into career was something you just sort of eventuated, or was it something that a mentor of yours had talked about at an early age?
No, it was probably something that we delved into when we were in school. And at TAC Cup footy, probably just realising that, there's 40-odd players on a list at TAC Cup level. Not all of them are going to get drafted. If you look at the history books, you're probably going to say there's going to be 4 to 6 that get drafted every year from a club. So what does that leave the other 38 to 40 players on the list? What are they going to do? And it's important to be able to set yourself up beyond footy, because it only lasts really for 10, 15 years if you're at the elite level for that long, if you're fortunate enough to make a living out of it.
Absolutely. And you mentioned Mick Mirra and your grandparents. Along your journey, have there been other people that have influenced your career?
Yeah, numerous. You mentioned David Banfield off the top. He was a mentor of mine, and Banners was a massive support of mine, when I was captain of the footy club, and being able to rely on someone who was a former captain. His wealth of knowledge, he's a teacher as well, so he's inspired me to go down that path. I'm currently doing my Masters of Teaching and working at Wesley, so he's been a massive mentor to not only me but a lot of the Boxhill boys. He does a lot with the traditions of the footy club, so that's really important as well, to have links to tie you back to past players. And then, I've been fortunate enough to have some really, really strong teachers who believed in me when I was younger, some really strong coaches. Brendon Bolton was huge in my first year, taught me a fair bit about the game. You come out of TAC Cup thinking you know a fair bit, but once you sit down with Brendon Bolton and he goes through a game plan and standards and all that sort of stuff, it's a different world. Damien Carroll, who was massive to give me the opportunity to play senior footy at Boxhill, and Marco Bello, Chris Newman, Max Bailey. I could name a whole raft of coaches who were massive for my development. And then some of the players that I played with early days, Ed Kerno, who's still playing at Carlton, he was one of the leaders at Boxhill at the time. Watching him run around an oval is unbelievable. How fit he is and the standards that he set for himself was incredible. Sam Gibson was another one. He forged out a career at North Melbourne. I had huge admiration and respect for the way he went about it as a captain, as a player. So I learnt a lot of things off some of the guys that I played with as well.
And from Eastern Ranges to Boxhill, it makes a lot of sense. But were there other VFL clubs that you were looking at? And how important is it, like you chose to go with an aligned club? Do you think that's the best way to go?
Yeah, no, there weren't any other clubs. It just made sense for me at the time, living in the eastern area, to go to Boxhill. I mean, there was a really strong connection between Eastern Rangers and Boxhill. We actually trained with Boxhill when we were with the Eastern Rangers. There was a really strong connection there. And when we stopped playing at Eastern, a couple of us decided that we'd just continue our careers at Boxhill. I actually did not think about, the fact that it was aligned or, that there was going to be a heavy Hawthorn influence. I just wanted to stick with my mates and continue to play footy at senior level. And that's how it sort of eventuated.
Yeah. Yeah, okay. And then for the developing footballers out there, what are some of your key points? What do you find yourself telling young players quite often over your time?
Yeah, it's just about taking responsibility for your career and taking ownership. You sort of make it what you want to make it. I was one who missed out on getting drafted in 2009 and then getting picked up in 2017. So,
yeah.
You have to be willing to, forge a path for yourself and decide what you want to get out of your career. Do you want to just idle along, maybe play some local footy, or do you want to try and get the best out of yourself and, try and excel? And to do that, as I said before, you've got to be able to be willing to make sacrifices, put in the extra work, and work on those three facets that I spoke about, fitness, football, and your mentals is really important. So, yeah, that's what I would say is just take ownership, responsibility, and really set your goals out and write them down, and reflect on them.
Do you think your approach where you focused on like playing with your mates, finding that connection at Boxhill and really embracing your role opposed to getting bogged down on the goal of getting drafted, do you think that allowed you to play so many games and be at the club for so long and therefore getting drafted was just an end result of that focus?
Yeah, big time. Yeah. Look, I always had hopes of getting drafted. So it was always something that I wanted to do, and I always thought I was good enough to do that. But I guess when I became captain, I was 22 in 2013-14, my focus was shifted purely to the footy club and how we can get the best out of the group. And then it just enjoying it and embracing the footy club environment. Like I spoke about David Banfield, like he was massive for me in terms of educating me of the history of the footy club and giving me a path forward to, create my own legacy at that club. So that's what I focused on. It wasn't about getting drafted or getting kicks or, trying to impress. It was how can I be the best teammate possible and how can I live the standards and the cultures that we had set for the group? Because if I didn't do that, then it would be a ripple effect through the group. So, yeah, I had a strong passion for the club. I love the club. And I guess getting drafted was the reward after many years of hard work. So, yeah.
Yeah, awesome, mate. And then how did you find that transition from VFL footy to AFL?
Not too bad. I was pretty fortunate because I knew a number of the players and coaches, knew the system. The training drills that we had done at AFL level, we'd also done at VFL level. Preparation was fairly similar because we had Sean Murphy on board, and he was working at Hawthorn as well. It was fairly similar. But then obviously when you're playing, it's a different story. It's obviously the intensity of the game, the speed. It's a different class up above. But look, I had some really good experiences and thoroughly enjoyed my time.
Awesome, mate. Well, we'll start to wrap it up. Take us through what you're currently doing now. You mentioned Wesley, teaching, doing your Masters of Teaching. Whereabouts are you doing that? And what are you excited about for the rest of the year?
Yeah, so, COVID has opened up some opportunities in terms of flexible learning. So I'm currently doing that through Curtin University as the Masters of Teaching. So I'll do that over the next couple of years and do it slowly. I'm going to have a family of 4, so I've got another one due in October.
Wow.
So it's all happening at the moment.
Congratulations, mate.
Yeah, thank you. It's really exciting. So Massimo, my first, is a year and 3 months now, so that's flown. So I'm working as campus sports manager at Wesley, Wesley College. So I'm enjoying that, and playing at collegians as well, which is a bunch of fun. Like, the guys down there are awesome. We've got Jared Rivers, who's coaching. He's fantastic, and we're not going too great at the moment. We're 1-6, so the wins aren't coming, but hopefully we turn things around and have a good, strong back end to the season. So really looking forward to that.
Yeah, absolutely, mate. Yeah, I'm sure you guys will turn it around. Where are you playing these days? If it was outside mid to then key back, floating forward?
Yeah, bit of both.
What's the game? Yeah,
I sort of just stay down one end, and I started back and then I played forward, so it's a bit of a mixture, back and forward at the moment. As I said before, mate, the running capacity is slowly dying off as I become just ingrained back into local footy.
Yeah.
I don't think I'll be going dad life. I don't think I'll be going through the midfield or on the wing at any stage in the near future, Jack. But it's good. It's a bunch of fun, mate. I'm loving it down there. Great bunch of guys.
Awesome, mate. Well, thanks so much for your time and sharing all your experiences and what worked for you along the way. It's a great recipe for young and mature footballers to follow, mate. Thank you so much.
Mate. No, I appreciate it. Thanks for having me on, mate. You're doing some great things in this space, so keep it going. I love my time when I was working with you at the Hawks, mate. As I said, doing those extra boxing sessions and weight sessions and things like that to really prep myself. So, mate, it's good to see. So keep it up. Appreciate it. Cheers, Miz. Good on you, mate. Until next time, mate. We'll see you in the flesh soon. See you then. Bye. Catch ya.
Thank you so much for listening to the Prepare Like a Pro podcast. If you enjoyed this episode and want to make a guest appearance on a future episode, follow these 3 simple steps. Number 1, follow our podcast. Number 2, leave a review about your favourite episode on iTunes or Google. Number 3, share a screenshot of your review on Instagram and tag Prepare Like a Pro. To recommend a guest for a future episode or to discuss advertising your brand on the Prepare Like a Pro platform, email me at jack@preparelikeapro.com. Thanks so much for tuning in.